Oh boy, do we have a lot to talk about because the embargo is finally up for Gladiator II. It's almost out. We've come so far from discourse about a rap song being played in the trailer because that's what we dedicate our one precious human life to here on the internet. You guys know I'm a big Ridley Scott fan. I don't enjoy all his movies, but Gladiator is one that I've always loved and I think still holds up. And I think a lot of people, myself included, were really hesitant about a sequel for the typical reasons. And I came out of this having enjoyed it, but with some significant reservations, and the chattering that I heard after the screening was people saying that it was better than they expected, and I predict a lot of people will like it more than the original. I don't personally think it's better than the first film, but for what it's worth, I think it's Ridley Scott's best movie since The Last Duel. So let's break it down. This will be spoiler-free because we have another week or two until the wide release, so let me know your thoughts, but they've chosen to make the sequel about Lucius, who we saw as a young boy in the first film played by Spencer Treat Clark. He was technically the heir to the throne of Rome, but his mother Lucilla sent him away for his protection. And now he's older and Paul Mescal, and when his new home is conquered by Roman troops led by Pedro Pascal's general Acacius, he's determined to get revenge as he rises up through the gladiator system. And perhaps most significant, it's confirmed in the trailer that Maximus is Lucius's true father, the great gladiator. A huge part of why this movie succeeds is, of course, Sir Ridley Scott. To love him or hate him, the man is one of the greatest technical filmmakers ever, and it's just refreshing as hell right now to see a movie that is lit well, has intention behind the visuals. This has a ton of shots that I would like to frame and put on my wall. He worked with the same cinematographer as the first film. But it just feels like this big, epic production, the experience we go to the movies for. Ridley is also one of the few directors maintaining the art of having real people populate the frame. I guess they had 25,000 extras, 80 tents to get them all made up, but there's also so much more that they can do with modern CGI compared to the first film. There's this giant battle sequence to open up the film. They're fighting demon monkeys and rhinos. And of course, what totally sold me from the trailer, the naval battle in the Colosseum, which really did happen, even if the details were a little bit different. We know that Ridley gets a lot of flack for that in his movies, but I think the biggest one that we've heard from historians is that they didn't have this breed of rhino at the time, and maybe that they didn't put sharks in the Colosseum like this, but who's counting? The point is, it's more over the top in both scope and tone. There's more opulence in the garb and the sets, and it feels almost campy in certain ways, but Rome is also a failing city with beggars and the people on the edge of revolt. It's being led now by these sadistic twin shitheads played by Joseph Quinn and Fred Heschinger, who was originally supposed to be Barry Keoghan, but I think Heschinger is a great replacement. He actually kind of reminds me of a young Joaquin Phoenix. Denzel Washington as Macrinus is he is the greatest actor of all time. He is acting circles around everyone else, like just operating on a completely different plane. He is the only one that, to me, truly leaps off the screen here. And it's not in offense to anyone else, he's just Denzel Washington. Even in a sillier role like this, where he is like the Ben Affleck in The Last Duel of this movie. But his character actually is interesting, having come from the background that he does and now trying to climb this ladder of power. Keep an eye on him throughout the movie. Connie Nielsen is obviously great. I always thought Lucilla was a really interesting character and how she has to navigate the time as a woman. And Pedro Pascal, I don't have a ton to say, honestly. He's more of a plot device than anything beyond this like noble general who resents the power-hungry emperors, and that's fine. He's not really a main character. But what I do really want to talk about is Paul Mescal, because I'm seeing complaints come in that he is miscast, and I want to come to his defense a little bit. I think it's both that and that the character is just poorly conceived. I definitely was hesitant about him being in this huge role that obviously requires big physical and emotional presence, because most of what we've seen him do so far is very quiet, reserved work and things like Normal People or After Sun. And he definitely has the physical presence. We've got Paul Thigh Mescal over here. He, I guess, has played a lot of rugby. He's clearly super athletic and just beefed the hell up for this role. You totally believe him as this strong force in the arena. There's a lot more hand-to-hand stuff in this than the first one too, and it just has that tangible brutality and impact, which I love and is also hugely helped by the sound design. But man, they kind of just make him Maximus 2.0, And sure, like his father's legacy, that's such a huge part of this film, but Maximus was this prolific general with a biblical heart of gold, and you bought that he was a skilled fighter, a natural leader, an experienced strategist. And they sort of recreate all of those characteristics and sometimes even repeat specific types of sequences with Lucius, but he's also supposed to be this, scruffy kid with a chip on his shoulder. So it just doesn't fully make sense for the character and didn't really land for me. Like, why are people just gravitating towards him? How does he know how to fight on this level? I guess you can assume that he's learned stuff in the past however many years, but it relies so heavily on the whole Maximus thing, it just doesn't lay enough groundwork for him as a separate person. There's also some pretty brutal fridging going on in true Gladiator tradition, I suppose. And I think all of that is indicative of my larger problem with the story and the script itself. Ridley Scott is one of those filmmakers who also doesn't write his own films, but gets treated as though he does because his voice and his style are so strong and distinct. But David Scarpa wrote this, and he's written 3 of Ridley Scott's last 5 films. This, All the Money in the World, and Napoleon. And I had similar issues with this that I did with Napoleon. Like, the bones of the story are great, and the dialogue is really engaging, but the plot is a little overzealous, and I didn't really get what I wanted out of it thematically or emotionally. I think it's also partly this common sequel issue that mirrors Lucius. It is a rehash of the first film in so many ways, and absolutely has those callbacks, which I think also makes it a little bit predictable and can kind of just keep things in the first film's shadow, but then it also has to do something different. So there's all this extra stuff added, and the third act has to wrap up everything that's introduced beyond Lucius, and it feels a little bit rushed and a bit anticlimactic. There was really no moment where I felt like an emotional truth or impact like I do with the first film, except maybe with Connie Nielsen's Lucilla and how she's dealing with this heartbreak of her son resenting how he was sent away, even if she was doing it to protect him. There's also a moment towards the end where the visuals do a lot of heavy lifting, but it is a beautiful moment, but it's all just too fleeting. Like, it's hard to nail down 1 or 2 moments or things, especially because Ridley also does have a tendency to cut his films down a lot. I guess the first cut of this, like his full cut, is 3 hours and 40 minutes long. So who knows if we'll ever get to see that. It's kind of all of the above. These are obviously not new issues to have with a Ridley Scott film. So though I do think it succeeds in a lot of ways, and I do think people are really gonna like it, and I solidly enjoyed it. At the end of the day, I don't think it ended up living up to the first film, and I just have some issues with it. So I'm going to give Gladiator II 3.5 out of 5 stars. It's like a rounded 3.5. I had to think about it for a little bit, but I do think, like, as this larger than life blockbuster that's just a technical rarity in this landscape, I had a good time seeing it on the big screen like that, and think it is totally worth a trip to the theater to check out, see it in IMAX. But let me know your thoughts on Gladiator 2, guys. Do you plan on seeing it? I also will add a comment about this, but I would really enjoy doing a video on the original Gladiator. I know I've gotten a lot of comments from you guys talking about doing videos on older films, so let me know if you guys would be interested in that, kind of just a revisit / recap before 2 comes out. But yeah, let me know. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and keep an eye out for more videos soon. Thanks for watching.